Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chris Claremont X-Men Comic Club. I am Chris Anderson. With me as always is my co-host in this endeavor, John Coates. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Ready to get back into it. I can't stay away.
We are on issue 104, and this one sees the return of their probably most famous foe. Magneto comes back. The first time that we're seeing him in Claremont's run. This is a super interesting issue. Obviously, the cover is sort of a callback a bit to X-Men #1.
Yes, sir.
We'll see later in the classic one where Art Adams took that even a step further and made it look even a little bit more like that. But this is a really awesome Cockrum cover. Let's just dive into it and see what's happening. There's a lot going on in this issue.
Yeah, it is a banger. And quick note, this is the 11th issue with the new team. And it's 1977, and it's still bi-monthly.
Okay, we're still bi-monthly at this point.
Yeah,
we haven't. It's probably pretty successful, I imagine, at this point. But they just haven't made the editorial decision to go back to making it monthly.
Yep.
Cool.
So great Cockrum cover and.
Right away.
Here we go. Page 1. Great opening splash page full of all kinds of amazing details. The dock, they're still up there in sort of Scotland, Ireland. Is where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they've tried to rent a hovercraft,
as you do.
Yeah. Because they are going to visit Moira McTaggart, because they find out that she owns some property up here, and they get to go there. And if we remember the last 2 issues, they were at Cassidy Keep in Ireland, fighting Black Tom and the Juggernaut. And so now they're going to maybe get a little vacation after their terrible vacation that turned into a fight.
Right. I love all the sort of ancillary and side characters that Cockrum draws into things. Look at these guys on the very bottom here, kind of like shunning and freaking out at the way that Nightcrawler looks. And Nightcrawler is just, happy-go-lucky, saying hey, none the wiser to their, disdain for him. It's pretty great, and it just makes me think of that the side story that was in a previous classic X-Men, The Bet Again, where Logan bets him that if he just walks around as himself, everybody will be fine. And that's now that I'm seeing it sort of happen more often in these issues, where he's just sort of walking around as himself and not using the device that can turn his looks, into a regular person more. I'm getting why that story was added.
Yeah. And Nightcrawler he's so funny, and he's so confident. Like, it's so great. And they're definitely, so that they're in the Outer Hebrides, which is way off the coast of Scotland. So this is just like a really tiny coastal fishing community. And here are all these like superhero guys in costumes. And the guy who they're supposed to be renting the boat from, this Angus McWhirter, is basically telling them, you don't get the boat.
Right.
And we're going to find out why. And we flip. And how about that, Chris? Double splash. Boom.
Yes. I love this layout. you know, there's going to be several examples in these next 2 issues where it is just shows you how having a simple layout for most of your book, how effective it is when you change up the layout and make it, you know, not a grid anymore, and, you know, push things over the, you know, break the panel borders or do things like that, because this is just so impressive. It smacks you right in the face, even though the very top of it is sort of this, you know, not an action-packed thing, and then you get this giant, you know, you the first thing you notice is this big explosion at the bottom, but you got to get through the sort of mundane part at the top, which is kind of interesting. And I don't know how effective it is here, but we'll see it. We'll see these things again, and I think it's really cool use of the layout.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like the way the story breaks down, you could easily have the left-hand page be everything that's on the top of them getting the boat and stuff, and then they're traveling, and then they get attacked. But then he chooses to make the attack moment huge and take up both pages. So,
right.
Okay, so yeah, McWhirter is telling Banshee basically he has an agreement with Moira, not with these superheroes.
Right.
And Banshee is like, well, we paid you money already. And McWhirter basically says, well, tough luck. I'm keeping the money. It's forfeit.
Yep.
And then here comes Colossus right behind him for a little intimidation, and says, comrade, since you intend to keep our money, it seems only fair that we keep your hovercraft boat. Nyet. And then he's got the cash falling out of his jacket, and they just hang him up on a hook.
And steal the boat, basically.
And just take the boat. Yeah. And this
so
is
Moira's out on this island. Is where her lab is, it looks like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the first mention here that Moira owns an island. So she's not just a random housekeeper. She has her own private island. And they're like just hearing about it. And so they get to go visit it. But before they have a chance to get near there, something hits the hovercraft and just blows it apart.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Scratch. I love that. I love the effects here of this energy.
I do too. And I love how it's symmetrical right in there, because, you know, where the crease is, you can't really draw anything that you need to pay attention to. But if it's, you know, something that's like energy, and you can spread it across the two, and you sort of give it this symmetry that the whole layout is kind of giving it, kind of has, you know, it's super effective.
Yeah. And so we turn the page. Oh, we get another Franco Columbo sighting and a little Arnold right there for all you bodybuilding fans. And here we go. Now they got to swim to shore. And Nightcrawler is just like, he's just like a wet rag.
Yeah.
Wolverine's costume is all like his ear, pointy bits on his mask are all folded over.
That's Cockrum putting in the little details. And that Banshee face there, where he's, you know, sort of like, you know, his expression and his hair and everything just works perfectly here.
Yeah. And Wolverine says, did you ever get the feeling, though, that someone's got it in for us? And you better believe it, Wolverine. Here's one of, Nightcrawler, Wolverine.
Yeah.
And Colossus has a little moment thinking like, man, we got attacked. It's going to be another fight to the death. And life was so much simpler when I was just out in my little farming collective. But I wouldn't give it up for friends like these.
Yeah, it's wild when you think about it in sort of realistic terms. Like I mentioned it last episode, but, you know, he was just out, you know, in the sticks, you know, basically working as a farmer, you know, and now he is going on all these crazy costumed adventures. To think about like a real person being dropped into that situation, it's got to be a little bit terrifying, even though you can turn yourself into metal.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
And then from where they're at, they get a look up the beach and see this crazy metal tower kind of structure, and that is Moira McTaggart's laboratory.
Right.
Yep. And they're just, and the Banshee is thinking, man, I can't believe I thought she was just like a housekeeper.
Yeah.
She's something more.
There's something more to this. There's no way she gave up all this just to become the housekeeper of the X-Mansion.
Yeah. And so they figure out, all right, well, let's get up there fast and find out what we're dealing with. And Colossus, he takes off, and slam, runs right into a force field.
Boom.
Boom. And then everybody else is like, doing the mime thing, like, we can't get in.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden the ground gets tore up beneath them, and now they're like flying around on this piece of the ground, like a little asteroid, and it is throwing them straight at the wall of the lab.
Yep.
And yeah.
So this is where, in this issue, Banshee is sort of stepping up, it feels like, to be the leader of things, because he kind of pulls them all together to do all right, everybody, heave ho, 1, 2, 3, we're going to blast through the wall of this lab as we're flying by, and he's the one kind of putting 2 and 2 together and kind of, leading the way with this.
Yeah, he like takes over as like sort of like field leader.
Yeah.
In place of Cyclops here.
So far we've sort of had Cyclops as the leader. We've had Storm sort of take on a little bit of that role.
Wolverine was like a battle planner in the previous issue. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of nice, like getting like different characters stepping up in a different situation. Here we go.
Listen, cut loose now.
Cut loose, and boom, they bust a hole in the wall so they don't get splatted. Yeah. And they're just kind of looking around at this crazy space they're in, and then the doors at the other end of the hall are growing red hot, and the metal screams and crumples and blows apart. And here we go. It's Magneto time.
I love that little lapse with the door there, because it goes from red hot in a matter of seconds, white hot in a minute, and after the metal screams as it crystallizes and begins to crumple. And you can that's so cinematic, you can just see that happening in a movie. And then it's interesting to have that right hand reveal of Magneto. You would think that would have been a page turn, and I also feel like not to be negative about it, but I feel like this drawing of Magneto and coming back, it's a great drawing, but I feel like it could have been a lot more dynamic. But maybe it's just the time, and maybe I'm just looking at it through a lens of 40 some years down the line.
Yeah. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's like a little more Kirby in there.
It does. That hand definitely looks Kirby,
Could have popped him a little more or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with the page turn thing, like you would think it would be a page turn.
Right.
For your Magneto reel, but like this issue, like it is moving.
Yeah, it sure is.
Like the only slow page was page 1, and as soon as you flip, like stuff is blowing up.
Yeah. They're just going for it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so this is the first time the new X-Men have faced Magneto. Of course. And he claims that soon he'll be Lord of all the world. I am Magneto.
That's right.
Oh, man.
So here we've got Moira and Scott have gotten to the lab. They flew out from New York, and they're gonna kind of see what's going on here. They know something's amiss, and there on the ground they find Jamie Madrox, the multiple man, right?
Yeah, good old multiple man. Yeah, and if you haven't read this far back, it might surprise you that he's this old of a character.
Right. Yeah, it does surprise me. I didn't know.
Yeah, because I only sort of knew him from way towards the end, almost when X Factor switches teams and the multiple man is in there.
Yep.
Yeah. And you also get here Cyclops is bringing up he's a little bit angry at Moira because it's the first time he's heard that she has a mutant research center.
Yeah.
This secret lab. And so now, so that lays out, that's what her deal is. She's not a housekeeper. She's kind of an equal to Professor X mutant research specialist. And she's got this high-tech base, and it's got a sort of a prison in it where they can house the most dangerous mutant villains to try and rehabilitate them so they can, rejoin society or something. And we get here's a little jail cell for Unis, the Untouchable.
Mm-hmm.
Nice little callback there. So, yeah, I love Moira and having a research lab and stuff. That's just such a great, it gives the X-Men a whole nother slightly different area to operate out of and different stories. And it moves it away from the school, school where the little kids are.
Right.
And,
yeah, we're coming out into the wider world at this point. Yep. I love this line where she's talking about, and perhaps cure their hatred for humanity. It's my life's work, Scott, begun in happier days. When Charles and I were ... students together. Follow me. The main lab's right through here. So it's sort of, giving that pause sort of implies, and then, highlighting the word students, it sort of implies that they were more than students together.
Yeah. It also kind of gives you a little bit of a thought towards Professor X's actual age, because you don't think of Moira as being old. Right. She's not as young as some of the other X-Men, but she's not an old lady.
Right.
And sometimes it's easy to see the professor as an old man.
Yeah, because he's got a blanket on his, in his
wheelchair.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. So they wake up the multiple man, and he's like, Moira, no, what have you done? If you've brought the X-Men here, you've murdered them.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh. And now we get our little flashback as to this little setup here. And of course, Eric the Red is involved. That SOB. And he showed up with Polaris and Havoc, who are still mind controlled. And they defeated the multiple man. And Magneto, this is a weird thing. Yes. Magneto was a baby.
So did this happen in previous issues?
It says here it happened in Defenders number 16.
Ah, okay. I don't have that little note on mine. Defenders number 16. So they turned Magneto into a baby so that he wouldn't be wreaking havoc and all powerful, and they stuck him in this jail.
Yeah, like he's going to be raised properly by Moira, and then he won't be a menace when he grows up the second time.
Okay.
Is the thought process there. And this is definitely not the first time that X-Men or X characters are going to have their ages messed with and get turned into babies or adolescents and back and forth. So that's kind of a weird thing that is, gets dropped on us right here, but it's going to keep coming back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then, so here we get Eric the Red is chilling here in this chair, talking to Magneto about an alliance where they can work together to destroy the X-Men. And so I'm struck by, so I know you're a Masters of the Universe fan like me. Eric the Red's armor it's so much like Skeletor's God armor in the movie.
Yeah,
like the headgear, you got to add a bunch of horns and stuff to the headgear, but it every time I see it, that's what the first thing that comes to my mind.
That's
for some reason.
Curious thing, because I'm pretty sure that William Stout designed that thing. It was either William Stout or Mobius, because they were the two guys working on that. I'll have to ask that next time I see William, because I'll see if I can find that out.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I hope he says yes.
Yeah, he probably would. If even if it did happen, he probably wouldn't admit it. I wouldn't.
Yeah. And here we go, Cyclops. Good close-up Cyclops face, freaking out.
Yep, saying that if he's back, he's probably at the peak of his powers.
Yeah. He's like, get on the jet. We got to leave as soon as we're ready. I got to go get the other X-Men.
Yeah, we're getting out of here.
Yeah. And I like he mentions, he's like, oh, well, the old X-Men could handle Magneto, but, we haven't trained the new team to do that. And I'm like, man, you never handled no Magneto, old X-Men team. So now our little backstory is out of the way, and we're into the action here. Magneto versus the new X-Men.
Yep.
And it goes about as well as you would expect.
Well, half of them their powers involve metal. So
yeah, Wolverine with his metal claws. No metal bones yet, but he's got metal claws. And so, he just gets tossed. He's like, my claws. And he gets thrown into the wall. And then Colossus gets flung around like a cannonball, just bouncing around towards his teammates. So he's like the worst one, because now he's being used as a weapon. And
so
then
Storm comes in to try to do something about it.
Yeah, so she tries to throw some lightning at him and some hurricane winds, but somehow Magneto can just bounce that back with an interference field.
Yeah, he sort of contained it in her, and as she tried to release it, it just backfired into her. So, ouch.
Yeah, sometimes Magneto can be a little annoying, because I'm not sure the science is very sound all the time with things that he can do. I mean, not that it needs to be, because it's a comic and you want your villain to be whatever, but
sure.
But every now and again something will pop up and I'm like, is that how magnets work? But
yeah, whatever. Next.
But this is great. Oh yeah, Colossus, he's trying to stop himself, and he's going through this conundrum where the only way he can fight Magneto is if he becomes human, but then he's super vulnerable. But so he's got to stay metal and try and face him from a distance.
Right.
As a steel man. God, the ads. And Magneto has none of that and just chucks him through the wall out into the ocean. And it kind of gives us a little thing. It says if he transforms into a normal guy, he'll freeze in minutes.
Right.
So it kind of lets us know that when he's in Colossus form, he can withstand some different temperatures.
Yeah, he's like a thermos.
Yeah. Nightcrawler. So we get all this good wreckage chucked at Nightcrawler, and he's just going to teleport out of there. Mm-hmm. But Magneto can sense disruptions along magnetic lines of force that he kind of waves out there, and he can tell where Nightcrawler is about to reappear. And so he just, crushes him with debris.
Yeah. Magneto is so powerful. It's just not about like being able to pull and manipulate metal. He can pull and manipulate, the very air around him, basically, to hover and fly, and he can tell where things are. There's no, sneaking up on him. It's wild how powerful they made a character where on its surface seems silly, but when you need him to be powerful, you can justify through, it's a comic. Pseudoscience is fine, and you can make him as strong as you need him to be.
And so now we're kind of down to just Banshee.
Yeah.
Banshee versus Magneto. And this panel is great here with the sort of like lighting up, glowing with the amount of force he's screaming.
Screaming so hard that, in mine, it's colored a little bit differently. So it's always interesting to me how the way that it's colored on yours, his eyes could be closed and we're seeing like his eyelids, or the way that it's colored on mine, which I'll show you later, is, he's colored in flesh color and then the eyes are white. So either his eyes are closed and he's concentrating so hard, or he's concentrating so hard that his pupils have disappeared.
Yeah. I'm sure they do it like in other hero books, but like through the X-Men, they definitely will use like white eyes as a good like shortcut symbol for like energy and powering up and doing stuff. You see it a lot with Storm,
for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. But it could easily have they colored it all flesh, it would have been easily sellable as closed eyes too. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah. Especially with Banshee, because they never like do this with Banshee.
No, that's what made me think of it,
But Banshee, he gets a good shot in, takes the floor out, but Magneto can use his anti-gravity field and fly. And they mention here, just like Polaris did in X-Men 97.
That's right.
When she was just
saw that last week.
Storm. Yeah, in the airport.
Oh no, not last week. I'm thinking about our release dates a few weeks ago.
Yes. Everyone should go rewatch our episode talking about issue 97, so you for sure know what Archie Goodwin is talking about here. And so Banshee, Magneto throws stuff at Banshee. Banshee blasts stuff away. It's like, ooh, a stalemate. And this is great from Magneto. He's like, excellent, Banshee. Of all the new X-Men, you're the only one worth fighting, even though you fight for a lost cause. So it's like a little props there,
Yeah.
Which is really great. Yeah. But you see these little black specks coming in the edge of the panel there, coming at Banshee. Yeah. and it's all like iron particles that just encase Banshee like a glove, and he's just sealed away, and that is terrifying.
Yeah, he is. He says he uses ferrous particles from the wreckage. So just like motes of metal dust in the air, basically, he just pulls them all together and seals him in this like metal coffin. He can't even breathe in it, and that is just plunk to the ground. That's just awful and terrifying. As we see here, then Cyclops shows up and starts to zap him with his beams. And I just want to point out the way that the magnetosphere is drawn around Magneto here. You can't really see it very well, maybe, but most of the body that you see of Magneto here is done in color, and there's just some thick like spots to just kind of like hint at where the body actually is, and mine's colored differently than yours too. I wanted to try to find the original art of this, and I couldn't find it for this page to see what it actually looked like, because that's not an easy thing to draw. And the next panel too is the same sort of way, where it's sort of, well, on mine it's more colored more where he's missing, but yeah, it's wild how much the colorist had to like pick up some slack here.
Yeah, it's really interesting effect. Like I like it a lot. Like it doesn't happen in the future much. Like other artists, like some other things we've mentioned about Cockrum's work, they don't pick up things he was doing and continue it on. And like this kind of effect where Magneto gets attacked and you can see the disruption in the waves around him for his little force field. Like that's so cool.
Yeah.
And it really sells the idea of him generating these force fields and stuff.
Yeah. They did it for Polaris too, you know? But hers sort of was more like if you were to look at a diagram of the magnetosphere and how it comes around the poles, that's how they always do it with her, with this double sort of circular thing, you know, like an infinity symbol going through it, and where he is more of like radiating out all the time.
You're right. We got to try and find like the original page if there's a scan of it anywhere.
I mean, I went on Heritage Auctions.
Like there's so much. Yeah, that it's just done with the, you know, little dot patterns in color and everything.
Yeah, I really want to see what that looks like in black and white. We'll try to track it down. And if anybody's got a line on that, let us know.
Yeah, and you know, if you have the original and you don't look at it very often, you can send it to Chris Anderson. And
PO box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll take a good look at that. And Cyclops is trying to hit him full blast, and he can barely keep him down. And he's just hoping the rest of the team will like come back together and get ready. Yeah,
but they're down for the count.
Yeah, but yeah, they're not getting back in this sucker. And then Cyclops kind of realizes something, and he's like, I must be getting old. I should have seen the pattern the moment Banshee told me Eric was behind the ambush at Cassidy Keep. Because we got to remember Eric the Red was behind sicking Black Tom and Juggernaut on the X-Men. And now Eric the Red is involved here again. And Cyclops says, if this pattern means what I think it does, Professor Xavier is in a lot more danger than we are. And Nightcrawler is slowly coming back to consciousness, and Cyclops is telling him, find the others and get to the landing pad behind the lab.
Yep.
Basically, we're leaving.
Yep. Retreat.
Yeah. And then he finally breaks Banshee loose.
Mm-hmm.
Hoping that he hasn't suffocated already.
Yeah. I've got to be careful, even using my narrowest stream. I can't afford one false move. And yeah, somehow doesn't hurt him breaking this metal shell off of him. But makes me think that he's kind of missing his calling. Maybe he should have been some sort of surgeon or something, you know, frying cancer out of people or something.
Yeah, right. Or like he could be, I don't know, like a welder or I don't know, in construction or something, you know?
Yeah.
So Storm comes running and she's like, wait, Nightcrawler said we're leaving. We're not going to attack. And Cyclops is like, no. And everybody's confused, like, wait, why aren't we attacking?
Yeah.
And Cyclops says, well, we're pulling out and heading for New York. And here comes Wolverine. The blazes we are, bub. This fight ain't over yet.
Says who?
Yeah. Says who? The X-Men's team leader, Buster. Do as I say, or so help me, I'll blast you down and carry you out.
Those guys. I love this last panel. Wolverine even mentions it. He says, huh, oh, great. Looks like that bug-eyed broad's busted loose. It's the Dragonfly Animan from... Anawoman from issue 94, I think.
96, it says. Last scene in 96.
Scene in issue 96, okay.
Yeah.
Or Classic X-Men number 4, as mine says.
There you go. So really interesting that like this moment to be like, oh, well, she busted loose.
Yeah.
Because then you think,
she's
going to show up again.
Is she going to become a major villain? Like,
yeah, we'll have to find out. Maybe she joins the team.
Maybe. I can't wait to find out.
So now we get back to the jet. Ooh, and we get to see the tail fin of the plane is still X-Men branded. Super awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, and Colossus has finally walked across the ocean floor and got back to the base.
Yeah, he says something here. He says that I'm alive, Aurora, and as sick of water as Nightcrawler. Have we seen something that I missed where Nightcrawler hates water?
It must be just the very beginning of the issue when the plane crashes and they're coming out of the water on the beach, and like Nightcrawler is drawn looking really waterlogged.
Okay.
So it must be just from that moment.
Okay, he's not like.
But that is interesting. It's like, oh, maybe Nightcrawler hates water and we missed it somewhere.
Yeah, like a cat or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they're on the plane, and Cyclops is finally explaining to the team that Eric the Red has been behind all these attacks, and Magneto's a distraction. So Eric is back in New York, going to attempt to kill the professor, and they got to get there.
Right.
Which that seems like a reasonable argument to me. Like, they just got their butts kicked. Like, what makes them think they're going to do any better if they attack him again? And they got to save the professor.
Right.
But Wolverine is like, hey, Summers, you can justify this till the day you die, but it won't change the fact that you made us run. You turned the X-Men into cowards, bub. And that's something the Wolverine will never forgive.
Never.
And he never does.
Whoa.
Or does he?
Or are we just moving on?
We will find out.
And I love this next bit where Magneto is just like, they're gone. I fought the X-Men, beaten them all. They've run away, leaving Magneto triumphant.
Yeah.
Like, well, are you? Or did they just like run away?
Yeah, Magneto in this issue with his return is a little bit like he is in his previous appearances, where he's pretty one note. He doesn't have much characterization or anything going on.
There's no depth to him yet. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very like yeah, Magneto is like, he starts off as like a knockoff Doctor Doom.
Okay.
Right? He's like the X-Men's Doctor Doom kind of a guy, you know, but without the charisma
right.
of the Doom. So, but that's you know, that's their first fight with him, and then we get a B or C story possibly dropped in this last panel, which is this is a great little drop in.
Yeah, it is.
He leaves then, never noticing as behind him a fine and private horror stirs and slowly comes awake. But that's a story for another time. And we see this door in the research center labeled Mutant X. No admittance. All
right. Well, I don't know who this Mutant X is supposed to be. So there's a couple of possibilities that I could possibly think of, but things would be way down the line for that. So I'm not sure who it is, and I'm very excited to find out.
Yeah, I'm excited when we get to the Mutant X issues. One of the X-Men's all-time great villains, I think.
Okay.
In this little Mutant X story. So then we get our sort of epilogue here.
I love his for this page. I love his sort of his writing style here, where Claremont says, you know, at first I thought it was kind of weird because you read scene shift, and I was like, well, he's popped to other sort of areas, you know, before without having to say scene shift. But then I realized that as the page goes along, we've got these first two panels and in one area, and then it says again, scene shift. And it's, you know, space in the first one, space in the second one, so as not to confuse you. But it also gives it this little bit of flair, and then scene shift again. And I you know, he's using his, you know, kind of theatrical script terms and stuff like that. I love the flair of that.
Yeah, and it works so well.
Yeah.
Too. And that just it's a great way, I think, to just orient your mind to where you're going, you know, just like, oh, okay, I'm switching.
Yeah.
Spots, you know, like I love when comics do that, you know, a panel that just says like at the top later or the next day, even like anything like that. I'm like, perfect. Like
it's very comics, you know?
Yeah.
This takes it another step though. I feel like, you know, he's developing his own sort of language with comics here.
Yeah. And it is very sort of, the way you'd write, like, you know, screenplays and plays and stuff like that, you know, you're writing scene or, you know, scene shift and stuff. And like, yeah. And so here now we're going back to outer space. The command deck of a Starjammer. And now we're going to here's our introduction to some Starjammers.
Now, is this the first time we see these characters?
Yeah, right. We haven't seen them in any of the issues yet.
Okay, and they're not from any other book, so this is their first appearance.
No,
okay.
yeah. They don't show up in anything else.
Cool.
Until X-Men. So so here we get a guy referred to as Christopher. It's starting, Chad. The 9 stars are moving into alignment. And this awesome reptilian design guy with this weird little possum dude on his shoulder here. So that's Chad. And he said, and our Christopher with this awesome pirate bandana and earring and stuff. He says, Chad, if the Emperor goes through with his plan, if he opens the dimensional gate, it'll be the end of everything. So now, since issue 97, Professor Xavier's been having all these weird dreams, and they started to show us these space battles and all this kind of crazy stuff. but they haven't explained what any of it means or anything yet. So now here we are
getting closer and closer in his mind.
Yeah. And so now finally the end of issue 104, they give us a little explanation of what's going on. And we shift again to then here's the little bug ship, and it finally reached the Earth. It kept getting closer and closer. Now it's finally here, and we can see the face in the helmet here. And this character is saying, I must make it. If the Emperor, my brother's mad plan is going to be stopped, I have to get to Earth.
Yep.
So now we got our Starjammers here talking about this Emperor character who's going to like destroy the world, the universe, whatever. And then this character is the brother of this character that's trying to come to Earth.
Mm-hmm. She's all of a sudden in pursuit also, and they're firing at her. She's made it all this way, and it may be for nothing.
Yep. And she's trying to find the X-Men, trying to get help. And then we shift again, and now we're back to this happy little domestic scene, the professor and Jean and Jean's parents visiting sort of Jean's new apartment and her apartment roommate, Misty Knight.
Yep.
Private investigator Misty Knight here. And they're just going to have like a nice evening, but outside the window, Eric the Red and Havoc and Polaris. If the X-Men arrive in time, it'll do them no good. The die is cast. My final player about to make his entrance. And when he does, the princess will be mine, and Xavier and his X-Men will be no more.
Amazing.
So then, now we know this is a princess.
Yep.
Who's coming to Earth to try and get help.
Love it.
Next issue, Phoenix Unleashed.
Dang.
Wow. What do you think of this whole like info dump setup at the very end here?
I think it's great. I think it's super effective. I like having these things where he's playing out the drama, and it's, you know, and it's breathing and it's taking its time. I mean, it's not, he's not giving it too much breath, but, you know, developing these characters and then having these kind of pages where it's like boom, 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 all, you know, condensed into one page. I really love it because it moves the story along, you know, real quick. It's starting to bring a lot of different things together that he's been, you know, he's got a lot of threads going on. And like you said, sometimes there'll be threads that he throws in there and we never get back to it. But, you know, he's really just in these first, how many issues are we in now? 11?
It's 11th of the new team. So 10 in the regular series.
There's so many threads that he's thrown out there, and already he's starting to like bundle a bunch of them up. And I'm loving it so much.
Yeah, this issue, like it just moves right from the get-go, and they're just like boom, 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 and he's just dropping all kinds of nuggets on you. Moira's research mutant facility. Here's different cells and prisoners that seem to have escaped, or something's going on. Now all of a sudden we're gonna start to wrap up this space thing that I've been building for a whole bunch of issues, and give you just enough to where you get more interested, and you're like, okay, now I really want to know where this goes.
All of this in 20 pages a pop. It's a feat.
Yeah,
that's for sure. It's a master working at his craft. And so that is issue 104 of X-Men. Let's pull in the classic version here and take a look. This is Art Adams' cover. So as you can see, I actually think that I like Cockrum's cover better, even though Adams' version sort of tackled the original X-Men #1 cover maybe a little closer. But yeah, I mean, they're both great. This is inked by Al Williamson.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and the inside also, so we get to see Magneto here, which I think is interesting. Magneto is the least exciting part of this issue.
Yeah, he's kind of bland.
Yeah,
compared to everything else going on.
It looks like Sam Granger also inked this issue, but Cockrum and Granger also do the extra pages for this. So it starts out just like your issue does. And then we have this whole sort of interlude here, which is super interesting because, I mean, this doesn't look like a Cockrum face, and neither that doesn't look like Cockrum drawing Storm. So it feels like almost like Williamson came in and went, no, we're going to tighten this face up here. No, her eyes are too cat-like. We're going to pull them down here. You know, I feel like the difference is in the. Or I could be wrong because no, I am
not wrong.
No, I'm totally wrong. No, I'm totally wrong because Al Williamson inked the Art Adams stuff. This is still Cockrum and Granger. Huh. So this is just looking at it through the lens of the team that inked all the original pages just years later. And so it's interesting that he's drawing them a little differently. This looks like more like an animation style or something than it looks like classic Cockrum, you know?
His style must have just changed by 80, whenever that is, 87, 88, whenever that issue comes out.
So yeah, this is still 87. This is August 87? of 87.
So yeah,
summer of 87. Yeah. So it's interesting. So you just get this whole thing where, you know, Colossus is you know, the blade's flying at him, so he has to turn into the metal at this point. And Storm, you know, gets wrapped up. This is where I'm sorry. So I mentioned earlier that the Magneto's powers were keeping her lightning in her. I was wrong. It's in these added pages that they mention that. Okay. So that's why she's sort of powerless. And then this is interesting because, you know, as we know later as we go, you know, Wolverine's claws are, the last issue, or one of the last issues, they mentioned that his claws are adamantium. So, you know, he says, my claws are adamantium, the strongest metal known, and sharp enough to cut through anything. So he's able to cut through these chains that have her, you know, underwater. And, you know, he gives her this kiss, this breath of air, you know, and here you got Banshee pulling Nightcrawler out of the water. And then this is a very odd page. You just sort of have Magneto watching all of this happen on this, you know, old school TV monitor.
Yeah.
And talking about their past together. When, you know, there's Moira, you know, and Charles and him. And, you know, how he felt manipulated by Charles, you know, in the past. And then he picks up this metal thing. I don't know what it is. And I think that he's supposed to be manipulating it to look like Charles as he's doing it. But it just looks like a Professor X pleasure device. It's the most bizarre insert. And then he shatters it, you know, and then, you know, he's gonna go after them. You know, I've lived through the Holocaust. Never again. The world will be brought to its heel, and our race guaranteed survival and prosperity. So, you know, they're sort of hinting at something that I'm sure they'll get to again in the future. You know, here.
Yes, they will. Yeah.
I think that you have all of these pages. Correct. Yeah. Stop me if I think there must be one more page somewhere here that is, yeah. See how he's colored differently here?
Oh yeah, you lose the white lines, like in the original.
Yeah, and how Banshee's eyes are white.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So they definitely recolored these. And I guess that's it then for those pages. And then you get this story at the end that John Bolton always draws, and this one is of Magneto thinking of his past, and it's talking about his being in the concentration camp and growing up there into a man, escaping with the woman who would become his wife. They have a child. Mm-hmm. They are in. They move to Russia. They are sort of outcasts. Somebody tries to kind of steal some money from him, and he's so mad that he gets this crowbar, levitates and shoots at the guy. Kind of when he realizes that he has these powers, and this mob comes to him and burns down the inn that he's staying in. He's able to protect his wife, but in the meantime, his daughter burns in it.
Gruesome.
Yeah. And, he kind of flips out, kills everybody there. You even see his daughter's charred body here, which is very gruesome. And then his wife, Magda, Magneto's wife's name is Magda, kind of freaks out and calls him a monster and runs away. Which is, I always find it interesting that these people that these mutants love, so far, we've seen it a couple times now that the humans that they're around that love them, seemingly unconditionally, as soon as they find out that they have these powers, they're out of there. And yeah, so it's just sort of a flashback to all of that. And then later, he's in France and there's some sort of fire happening, and he goes and saves this woman and child, and he says, at the end, he's like, how can we repay you? And he's like, actually, you can, by telling the world how your family was saved by Magneto the terrorist, Magneto the supervillain, Magneto the mutant, and remember me always, monsieur. I could have let them perish, but I chose life. So, it's sort of playing on that he's a complicated character, and even though he's portrayed as a villain, he does have this sort of good side where he wants to do good things, even though it's his own weird agenda.
Yeah, that's a good backup story. I like that one.
Yep, it sort of fills you in, and gets you up to date at the time of in 1987 as opposed to 1977. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, John, where can they find you on the webs?
I sell my comics at dinobeast.com, and I'm on the Instagram at JD Coates.
Awesome. And you'll see where you can find me at the end of this. As always, the thumbnail for this episode at the end of here will be a speed drawing of the thumbnail, and those are available for sale on my website. And until next time, when we talk about issue 105 of X-Men, have an excellent week, right, John?
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
All right. Later. Join my Patreon to see my work before anyone else, plus score physical sketchbooks, mini comics, and commissions delivered right to your door, and reading my new books, Something Seems Off and Three-Headed Pigman, as they are made. Go to my website to order original art, commissions, and my books, Lost Angels, Spectral: A Showcase of Fear, Chaotic Neutral, and more. Gray Matter Drip, The Art of Chris Anderson is available now from Cosmic Lion Productions. Here are the upcoming conventions I'll be at the time of this recording. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. It helps spread the word. Thanks.